You know, you always think this happens to other people. Never happens close to home, but when it happens close to home, it's like, it's a whole different ball of wax, so to speak. It's just, it changes your whole life.
Hi, my name is Donnie Rader. I was diagnosed with ALS about 3 years ago, and I'm currently a retired entrepreneur.
I grew up in Georgetown, South Carolina. It was nice being a twin because you always had someone to play with and do things with.
You always had somebody to play with. You always had somebody to talk to.
He was my best friend and still is.
Donnie and Ronnie were pretty much, as you imagine, they were a package.
Where you saw one, you saw the other, and we always did everything together. We were often confused from one or the other because we looked so much alike. Unintentionally, we had a lot of fun with it because a lot of people got us confused because they'd always say, are you Ronnie or are you Donnie?
My earliest memories were of Donnie and Ronnie and my brother and all of us together.
Yeah, David grew up down the street from us, and you know, we're 54 years old now. Back in the day, there weren't computers or anything that would keep you inside like most kids these days. So we always had a group of guys that played football. We all got unicycles one year for Christmas.
Built tree houses, riding motorbikes.
And my friend had one, my other friend had one, so we'd kind of get together and
get in what we thought was a lot of trouble, but was mainly mostly mischief.
And we went and learned to surf when we were about 10 years old. Our older brother was a surfer, and he would come home and throw a surfboard in our parents' yard, and we would pretend like we were surfers by standing on the board in the yard, and we would pretend like we were riding a wave.
As we got older, we would go to the beach and surf and surf and surf and surf.
And that's what we did growing up, and I don't think I'd change anything.
I had a wonderful childhood, and I cannot complain about a thing.
Donnie and I met about 20 years ago. We stayed friends, but we didn't stay in touch a lot. You know, our lives carried us down different paths. We later reconnected, and at that time I had a little girl. Blake was 5 when we got married, and he adored her.
He taught me to ride my bike at 6 years old. He was the one that put me on restriction and gave me the rules of the house. And he was the responsible father that my mom wanted. He didn't want to be an enemy. He always wanted to be my friend, and he never wanted to replace my dad. Was the one thing that he always said was, you know, I'm not your daddy, but here is a bit of advice. I appreciated that. My dad says that he couldn't have picked a better stepfather.
It's been 17 years. We have a little boy, Cole, who is now 11. It's been a totally different experience in parenting both of these children with the same dad. So it's been very interesting, and it's been a constant balancing act, especially since he got this disease.
When I got diagnosed with Parkinson's was the first one in 2007. I was devastated with Parkinson's, but you know, I had a friend of mine that had it, and he told me, he says, you know, it's not a death sentence, so I had to find a new neurologist. He was there taking tests and doing the stuff that new doctors do. And I'm sitting on the table, and he says, what's wrong with your legs? And my legs were moving very slightly back and forth, forward from front to back. I said, I don't think anything's wrong with my legs. And he said, well, we were going to check it out just to make sure. And we did a nerve conduction test. And man, let me tell you, that's a painful thing. We continued doing the tests and all this stuff. And when we got done, he said, Mr. Rader, I'm going to send you to a specialist. And I'm thinking, oh my God, where's he going with this, you know? They had these, you know, little flyers they had pinned up on the board in there, where it tells you about different diseases and things like that. And I read this stuff called ALS. I didn't know what it was, but I read about it, and I knew exactly what it was after about the 4th visit to my doctor. But I never discussed it with anybody, but I knew that was the next step up from Parkinson's.
ALS is a neurodegenerative syndrome, which means that a collection of nerve cells in your brain, which are neurons, begin to die at an accelerated rate. Sort of when you're born, you get all the nerve cells that you're ever going to get, and when they die, they're gone. As these neurons die, they create problems within the brain and the spinal cord, and then the clinical symptoms come out.
When we went back about 3 months later, And he had the results of the test, and he told me I had ALS. And it floored me. So my wife and I cried. And been battling with it since.
And they said, as bad as that may sound, it may be a godsend, because people with Lou Gehrig's disease generally die between a 2 and a 5 year lifespan. And you've already had Parkinson's for a couple of years, which, you know, you've had some ALS symptoms too, but you're already 2.5 years into this. You know, you're at the beginning, at ground zero here. But we were devastated. And I was trying to be stronger for him because it was quite a blow. All I could think of was, how long do we have? And how old is my son going to be when his daddy passes away? I mean, is he going to be 10? Is he going to be 13? We need to make the most out of what we have right now.
It makes me feel kind of sad that I can't help in any sort of way, but I have help around the house doing stuff like cooking and help Mom and like help feed Dad in the morning and help get him up.
I was really shocked. I wasn't exactly sure what Lou Gehrig's disease was. I just knew it was bad. And then they told me what it was, and that he would be progressively getting worse and confined to his body and be completely aware of what was going on, and just died of a heart attack or something, that it would just not be Lou Gehrig's disease that killed him, but some other way of just giving out. And I cried and cried, and I was concerned about my mom. I didn't really think about me. I thought more about my little brother and how I had 2 dads growing up, and he's not gonna have any.
It's they call it the beast, and I understand why. It's very, very painful, and it gets to the point where you can't move your arms or your legs, or you can't do anything that you once did as a child or an adult.
It's like it's part of me too. And I just couldn't, you know, imagine being in the situation he's in.
I can look you in the eye and tell you what is wrong, and I can tell you that I will not turn away from you, that I won't be afraid of it, that I will sit with you, that I will talk to you, that we will explore it together, that we will learn about it together, and that maybe this is your first time down the road. And I haven't traveled it all the way to the end, obviously, but it is not my first time down the road. And I can help along the way, tell you what is going to happen or may happen, and validate to you what you're experiencing and say, yes, this is part of your disease, or yes, this is something we can expect, or yes, this is something we can act upon and try to help you get better.
We live underneath that umbrella of responsibility and guilt and just the nagging day-to-day caretaking of it all. So we get frustrated with each other. As far as our marriage goes, it's changed the way that we communicate. He's my patient. He's my husband. He's the father of my children. But I'm taking care of him and everything else.
My mom is the leader of the household. She runs 2 businesses. My mom's a very giving person.
The thing I hate about being in a wheelchair, a person in a wheelchair gets no respect. And I don't like that, because I was always respected everywhere I went, and everything I did. And it's a big change. We rent a van from time to time to go places, and it's a very expensive thing. I don't understand why it's so expensive when most people are handicapped, don't have the money to rent it or buy one. But I mean, if you gotta go to the doctor or you gotta go to the market or something like that, you can't go anywhere. I think something needs to be done as far as the transportation for handicapped people. I mean, I got a nice wheelchair, thank God I can afford that. But I mean, there's people out there with a manual, and I got, you know, got like a race car here, which I really enjoy. But we used to go do things all the time together, and now we don't hardly do anything because I can't venture too far away.
When you have something like this come into your life, then all of a sudden you start what-ifing everything. You know, everything we do in our family revolves around this disease. Where we go, what we do, how long we're there, if he has his medicine, you know, when's he gonna have to go to the bathroom. I love Donnie, and I don't want anybody else to take care of him. I wouldn't wish this on anybody else, but I don't want anybody else to take my place. You know, I think it's going to teach my son a sense of compassion that maybe my daughter didn't learn until she got older. You know, I mean, she's having to learn to make sacrifices. She's never had to make sacrifices before, and that's all that Cole has known, you know. So I'm okay with that part of it.
And so when someone says, why do I have this disease? Why do I have Parkinson's disease? Why do I have ALS? Why did I get Alzheimer's disease? The uniform blanket answer to all of those questions is, we don't know yet. But maybe we're getting close. We know that there are several risk factors for ALS. Age is an independent risk factor. So the older you get, the more likely you are to develop a neurodegenerative syndrome. Family history is a risk factor. You can't wander away from your genes. So what your parents had, you have the genetic predisposition to have some of those diseases yourself. In my own simplistic forest view of the world, you're a constellation, a unique constellation, but a constellation of genes from a long, long, long history of human beings. And within that genetic code that makes you the awesome and unique individual that you are, there are kinks in your armor. And just like the dragon in The Hobbit, you're missing a scale, and that black arrow will find you.
The faith is where I am right now. It's almost 3 years, and you know, I look the same, but my body is changed quite somewhat. Most of the time, I feel great. I feel great, and I know that I'm in the hands of God. And if you don't have faith, I think you're missing the boat.
When you are dealt things like this, it brings out who you are and how you handle them. And that's it. And you can't lose your faith, and you can't blame God. You need to get closer to Him and thank Him for the time that you do have left. I wake up every day feeling like this is going to be better than it was yesterday. But I mean, just the day-to-day stuff taxes you. But I'm not going to live like he's dying in the meantime.
Without friends and family, you don't have much. And now, our friends have kind of circled the wagons, so to speak, and have come not to his rescue, but to his aid, to try to make him feel better about the situation, about maybe what we could do to help him going forward, and just do what we can do to make his life a little easier.
It's definitely brought my family closer. I mean, I've had to give so much of myself to Donnie, who raised me. I mean, I would do anything for him because he's done so much for me. He's been an excellent role model. I love him so much. I hate that he's going through this, but it's just one more thing and it's okay.
I don't know, hope. I would hope that it would be great if Donnie was healed and we could have our family back the way it used to be. I don't see that it's ever happening. But I do think we'll be happy again. And we're trying to be happy now, which is a little bit more of a challenge.